Hello again. It will probably sound quite obvious, but wars tend to be violent affairs in which people are killed, injured, and are sometimes driven from their homes. Think, for example, of the Blitz on London in 1940, and also the evacuation of children at that time into the countryside. Similar stories could be told of French and Polish suffering during the Second World War, and also of Germany's experiences in that same war. Fast forward 80 years, and people in the Middle East are now being killed and injured during a war there, and many of them are having to leave their homes. This is a dreadful business, but that is in the nature of war. It is almost by definition what war means in the modern world. The present war in the Middle East is a little different though, because we are in general hearing only about the deaths, displacement of the population on one side of the conflict, but not the other. Do not take my word for this. Try the following experiment. Type into Google Gaza school bombed, just those three words. Then click on the news tab to see what news comes up under that heading. The third news item down is from the British newspaper The Guardian, and the headline reads, "More than 900 dead in Gaza since Saturday as shelling hits school, hospitals and homes." This ties in perfectly with the narrative of Israel attacking civilian targets, of course. Now type in Israeli school bombed and see what you get. Nearly every hit will be about schools in Gaza being bombed. But among them you will see just one hit from the Jewish Chronicle, which has the headline, "Israeli school in Eilat bombed by unidentified weaponized drone." The interesting thing here is that the mainstream British newspapers will not tell you about the ballistic missiles launched from Yemen on Thursday, at the same time that a drone was sent from Syria which struck a school in Eilat. I give a link to this in the description to this video. I'm guessing that very few of the people watching this video had even known that an Israeli school had been bombed in this way. The reason is very simple. A Jewish school in Eilat being struck by a missile is not really news in the same way that a school in Gaza being bombed is. But hang on, I hear you say. Those attacks on Israel aren't killing nearly as many people as are dying in Gaza, are they? Well, that has something to do with the fact that there is not a single air raid shelter in the whole of the Gaza Strip. Plenty of tunnels for Hamas to use as bases, but no shelters for civilians at all. No air raid sirens to warn people to take cover either, nor any investment in warning systems. Do you think that has a bearing on the matter? Here is another curious thing. Photographs and accounts of all those people being displaced from Gaza are all over the news because it is a ghastly human tragedy. Hundreds of thousands of people have had to leave their homes in search of safety. These people are civilians, families with children, sick people, old people, having to move away from areas which are under constant attack. Where will they live? Some people have to stay in tents in Khan Yunis and Rafah because there are no buildings for them to stay in. It's terrible, no? All this is remorselessly chronicled by the newspapers and television news channels in Britain. In the description to this video, I give a link to a news item, again from the Jewish Chronicle, which begins as follows. A tent city is being set up in Ramat Gan to house some of the more than 200,000 Israelis internally displaced by the war with Hamas from the Gaza Strip and Hezbollah in Lebanon. The Tel Aviv suburb's Kfar Maccabea resort complex will provide temporary shelters for 1,000 people evacuated from northern communities under fire from the Iran-backed Hezbollah terrorist group in Lebanon. Let me ask viewers, did anybody know that 200,000 people have been displaced in Israel and that many were sleeping in tents to escape missiles and bombs falling around their homes? I'm guessing not. This then is a difficulty with forming opinions about this particular war. If you decide what you think about it based only on what you read in the British newspapers or see on the television, then you're missing half the picture. If the only images of displaced civilians and refugees you are showing are people in the Gaza Strip, then those are likely to be the only people for whom you will feel sorry. If the only schools you hear about being struck by bombs are those in Gaza, then you're likely to assume that only the bombs of one side are hitting schools. It is fruitless during a war to claim that this side or that started it, or has right on its side, or are more or less barbaric than the opposing nation. All wars are terrible things, and all wars result in the death of civilians and people losing their homes. It is also pointless calling for a ceasefire. The reason for this should be quite obvious. It leaves the way open for one side in a war to carry out frightful actions, and then if their opponent look as though they are stronger or more ruthless than expected in their response, then the side which initiated the fighting can cry that they wish to stop now and ask that the war ends at this point. I'm afraid that war is not a game. One cannot really shout time out and expect the other side to stop shooting and let you regroup and decide what you will do next. All wars are undesirable, and the present one is no exception. Israel is fighting on two fronts, and I rather think that as long as people keep firing missiles at them, then they are unlikely to stop fighting. I doubt seriously that Hezbollah or Hamas is likely to stop fighting either, and so inevitably the war will continue and even become more brutal than it already is. I'm a pacifist and disapprove strongly of settling international disputes by means of armed conflict in this way, but there are many wars being fought in the world at the moment, and this one is by no means the worst of them.